Streaming live on Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, and blasttheradio.com, this is The Lowell Green Show. The number to call and be heard around the world is 613-413-2217. Or email Lowell at blasttheradio.com. And now, here is Lowell Green.
Anything you want to talk about today, folks, but for a moment or two, I'd like to talk about, as far as I am concerned, the bane of modern life, trolls, and all their different transformations. You know, when I first started with Facebook, I was warned, oh boy, look out for the trolls. I had no idea really what people were talking about. I've since learned.
I guess so.
What I knew was that trolls were actually ancient Norwegian fairy tales. That's how it started, way back in the 19th century, as a matter of fact. As a kid, and you probably, John, and many others, read the story. Remember Three Billy Goats Gruff?
Oh, gosh, yes.
Yes, yeah. They tried to cross a bridge,
right,
under which lived a terrible troll.
Yes.
I won't go into the detail. It's a fun story. It's one of the great classic kids stories. And Aesop in later life, he picked up on the troll theme as well. The troll featured in one of Aesop's fables. The troll who wanted to build a wall was a pretty scary character. Head shaped like a pumpkin, nose like a banana. He was appropriately named Thug. And by the way, this is where we got the word thug from.
Oh, okay.
In that case, Thug, at the end, tried to be a nice troll, tried to reform his life, save the lives of a number of rabbits, but his terrible reputation got in the way and ended his efforts to be a nice guy. So they're life stories, but interesting trolls, at least in the fables. Today's modern trolls, and I did a little research on this, in a number of different websites, are described as anything from ugly, grotesque fiends to alluring, dangerous con artists. Depends, they say, on where trolls are found. Well, in my case, the trolls aren't hiding under a bridge trying to build a wall. They're trying to drive me nuts, and I think you too, John, right?
Yeah, they try.
You've probably run across them, I would think, out there. Actually, there's no question that the modern-day troll is maddening at times. But I've got to tell you, they fascinate me because they pose a very interesting study in human nature. I don't know if you've ever really thought about this, but I think you'll agree that most people, normal people, want to be liked. And many will go out of their way to be liked. They certainly will go out of their way to avoid, whenever possible, upsetting other people. But trolls, and there are many versions of trolls, deliberately set out to annoy others. In many cases, they seem to get joy from disrupting the lives of people that they don't even know. And that's a very interesting question concerning human nature. The trolls on Facebook and other social media deliberately set out to offend. But I'm going to tell you something. They're not alone. Let me give you an example. I don't know if you've ever thought of it in these terms, but every night here on the edge of Stittsville, every night about 4:30, maybe a 4:15, not one, not two, but usually three and sometimes four young bucks in cars and trucks with specially adapted mufflers go roaring by. And I mean roaring by, okay? And they seem to get great delight. Every time they pass a house, they shift gear. And every one of them, all three and four of them, they have stick shifts. So there's no automatic transmission. So there's I don't know how they get mufflers to do this. It's got to be illegal. But, they're obviously getting a big kick out of this. They're getting joy. They're disturbing the peace and quiet of rural Ottawa, and they're getting a big kick. So you know what? You really have to ask yourself, what kind of a sick person would get a kick out of that? They don't get their kicks on Route 66. They get a kick out of driving people crazy. I mean, we live out here in the rural area, and I'm sure this happens in downtowns as well. We live out here in rural areas because we like peace and quiet. Cost us a lot extra. There's no question about it. No government services, et cetera, et cetera. But why do people deliberately try to win? And that's just one example. You'll see people trying to annoy others in supermarkets. You'll see them even in restaurants sometimes, although I don't see it that often in restaurants. But there's no question. Some people are just jerks. There's an even more impolite word. But you have to ask yourself, what's wrong with these people? What kind of a miserable life? Is this really the highlight of their day? They live lives so barren of challenge, of joy, of happiness that they have. This is how they get their fun. This is the fun, the only fun they have. It's a very interesting study. And the same, of course, about the social media trolls. John, you have plenty of interest. Give us just a brief summary of the kind of thing you're confronted with. For no apparent reason, people who don't even know you.
I mean, that's just the thing. I'm fascinated you even brought the subject up today because, I mean, in our world, in media, we are confronted with this every single day. And more often than not, we don't even address it. We don't even acknowledge it. We don't even talk about it.
Yeah,
it's just there, and it's always been there. And I think if you have any sort of spotlight on you, you're more prone to this.
You're more of a target.
Absolutely. So, I mean, I get everything from, you have funny hair to,
No, you do actually.
I
have
do,
funny hair.
but yeah, I mean, they're not wrong. And by the way, you were right. You were right about that last haircut. I'm not pleased at all. I'm gonna go back to doing it myself. No, but that I'm a disc jockey wannabe, or if I was any good, I'd be on a real radio station, or I mean, anything and everything you can possibly imagine. People
try to hurt you. They're trying to hurt you.
And I'm very open about my experiences in my life with mental health. I went through a great period of depression and anxiety. I've got a suicide attempt, that I've been very, very open and honest about. I talked about it at the Distress Center's 50th anniversary. And people will mock that and try and throw it in your face. And the reason, and the big question, just as you said, why? What fuels this? Where does it come from? It just flies in the face of everything I was taught and learned and believe about living life as a neighbor, as a citizen, as a husband, as a son, as a, it doesn't make any sense to me at all.
Yeah. What kind of people would get joy from that? I mean, that's, and by the way, it affects not just guys like you and I who are obviously targets, but I mean, it affects everybody in every walk of life.
Absolutely.
Thank God they're in a minority, but they must. I have come to the conclusion that they must live lives just almost totally barren of any kind of worthwhile endeavor, of any kind of joy or happiness. Just think of it. If this is how you get your kick, if this is how you get your day's entertainment, from hurting other people, annoying other people, then you are one sick puppy. And the question is, why? How do you get that way? Why would you do that? This really has always puzzled me, and it's really been brought to the fore since I joined Facebook. I mean,
yeah,
I love to provide people the opportunity of going at me and debating and so forth, but some people just carry it to an extreme. And so in the past couple of years, I've had to block maybe 4 or 5 people who just got totally out of hand. I mean, one guy threatening to throw the last shovelful of earth on my grave, that kind of thing. And so these people are just hopeless. But
and I've said it before. You have and you say it to me often, John. You need to get a thicker skin. And
yeah, you have to.
Yeah. And conversely, I say to you, I don't know how in the hell you take what you take. I can't believe you've only deleted and blocked a handful of people. I just don't put up with that nonsense. And I'm just very, you know what? I just don't need you in my life. Maybe that's part of my therapy or whatever else. I just don't need it. Delete, block, move on.
Yeah, I just like to give people the opportunity. Not
I know.
only that, but I like to study what they're saying because
I know
I
you do.
really am trying to figure out what motivates this person.
Yeah.
What kind of miserable life do they have? I mean, did they not have loving parents? Were they kicked out of their house when they were 4 years? I don't know. There's something there, and I just find it an interesting. And sometimes you get some very intelligent people, but they seem to get this peculiar joy from just annoying and trying to hurt. And that where I draw the line, and I guess you do too, if they become really personal, if they want to
Yep.
debate and be stupid about the topic, that's one thing. But when
Absolutely.
they get really personal, then they start criticizing the way you look and your hair and everything else. Now
And you know what? I
that's
don't care what people think about my hair or how I look or how I sound or whatever I'm doing in my life. When you start getting personal with it, and the biggest thing for me is when you start attacking others. When I invite people onto my social media stream
yeah.
and I invite them to a conversation and I want to engage, and now you're harassing them and causing problems for other people, that's a hard line for me. I
John,
don't want
why
that on my space.
I'm asking my listeners their theory here.
Mhm.
What do you think prompts people to do this? And there's more than just a handful. It's a minority, there's no question. But there's more than just a handful. I've never been able to figure out what motivates, what joy people can get. And by the way, that includes, roaring past. Why in the beginning? I mean, why
Sure.
in the beginning would people, and it's usually young men, have a muffler that they know is going to annoy people? I have to tell you something. A number of years ago, a good buddy of mine, we were sitting in an outdoor cafe in Naples, Florida. I love Naples.
Mhm.
It's very upscale. I can't afford it, but my friend can. So,
Good
so
friends to
he
have, right,
invites
Lowell?
me and invites Debbie and I, and we go. But I'll never forget the first time I'm there. I'm in an outdoor patio, okay, and this loud muffler goes ripping by, and my buddy turns to me and he says, "Watch this." But 1 minute later, the police siren.
Yep.
Not allowed in Naples, but I'm telling you, on my road. But like, why would people deliberately set out to do that? To adjust their muffler or buy a muffler that they know is going to shatter the peace and quiet?
Okay,
What possible joy?
in your
Yeah,
younger years, when
yeah,
you had a bicycle, did you ever
yeah.
take like baseball cards, hockey cards, or whatever else and take a clothespin and attach them to your spokes? Why? Why did we do that? It makes a cool noise, but
That's a good
why?
question. That's a good question.
Right? It's the same thing with these I don't understand the muffler thing either. It drives me bananas. But that's
I
where
have to.
I
I have
my
to tell
mind
you.
goes back to that every single time. I did the
Yeah,
same thing. It had to be, yeah. And the more noise you can make with the spokes and the baseball card, the better,
it announces, "Here I am." But let me tell you,
I guess.
my first little girlfriend. I was probably 10, maybe. And her name was Rita in Orillia, Ontario. Oh, the heartbeat. And I had this bike, and it had, remember the wire baskets that you used to have in your bikes?
Nothing made you
And
look
when
cooler but yep.
okay, but it rattled. Okay,
Oh,
it would
yeah.
rattle in the front fender. So I went and I got a dime a week allowance. That was it. Okay, believe that. So I took my dime and I bought some sort of tape, not Scotch tape or whatever that's, what is it? Black tape there,
Duct tape.
and duct tape. Yeah, and I wrapped it all the way. I took about 2 hours and I wrapped all of this so it wouldn't rattle. And then I drove back and forth in front of Rita's house. She never appeared. That was it. That was love affair over.
Oh,
I'll never forget that, trying to stop the rattle.
same
But
thing.
if
Same
yeah,
thing as a
yeah,
teenager. When I first got my license in my early college days, I had to have that big subwoofer. The entire back trunk,
you
trunk of
did.
my car was and like what
Oh,
woman is ever impressed by that? And yet, guys go out of their way, and I'm not saying guys, well, not exclusively guys, but the majority are guys. We go out of our way. We spend thousands of dollars on these amplifiers and these big speakers. It's just nobody cares for that, and it's painful.
So you think that maybe these guys go roaring past with their mufflers? This is just sort of a grown up card on your
I
spokes.
know it
sort of
pisses
thing.
people off. Now, what drives that? I mean, we're getting some great listener comments on that, and we'll get to those, of course.
Okay.
Yeah, I think, I don't know. Is it kind of on the same vein as, bad news sells? Why do you never read good news in the newspaper? Yeah, good news doesn't sell. Being nice to people, doesn't get them the
You
attention.
know what I've always wanted to do, and you have fantasies, right? I've often thought, you know what I'd like to do? I'd like to take a tape recorder out there and record one of these guys as he roars past, okay? And then find out where he lives, and at 4 o'clock in the morning, go down with the full volume and play this over and over and over again. I
I
would
got
love
I
to
got a
do
couple of PA speakers in the garage, Lowell, that would help make that really come to life for you. Listen, we can go on and on and on with a list of things that people do that
What
annoy
are
us.
people
They go,
saying? What are people saying here?
fireworks as well for no reason at 2:00 in the morning. All right, Mahadi says people attack each other over stupid stuff on Facebook and other social media platforms. Yes, they do, Mahadi. Mike says I used to do the same, but at least it was good music. Over to DL on Facebook. Sadly, everything is made with a dual exhaust these days, even when they're not trying to sound like they are revving.
No, but
Um,
let's not get away from the
mhm,
topic, okay? Um, what I'm looking for
is why.
why do you think people do this? Is it purely I mean, some of it may be innocent. You got the muffler, maybe it's just, hey, here I am, But a lot of it is not innocent. A lot of it is very hurtful. So my question, and I hope some of you thoughtful people will address this. Why would some people, in your opinion, why would some people deliberately set out to hurt other innocent people? Because they do. What do you think is the motivating factor here? That's really what I'm asking today. Please, okay? John?
Boy, time is flying already. 17 minutes after. We'll get to a word for Shields here in a moment.
Yeah.
But to your question, here's a text at 613-413-2217. This person says, I think trolls consist of people who are jealous of others, people who have nothing in their life to do, people who just enjoy bothering people and are juvenile with their name calling. I guess they are animalistic like chickens who pick on others who are different or injured. Jealousy.
You know what? That's
Oh.
that's interesting. A lot of animals, fish included, if there's illness in the aquarium, for example, or in the chicken yard or pigeon, if one of them is sick, the others will pick on it. That's very true. But in this case, it's purely innocent people. A lot of the hurtful stuff is carried out on people that these trolls have no idea who they are. So it's not a matter of picking on somebody that's weak. Maybe they assume they're weak. Maybe they think that they're in a position of power. I don't know. I'd like some thoughts on that. And before we do that, I'd like to give you my thoughts on Shields. Yeah, I think one of the things that these days in particular we're all looking for is just an honest deal. No matter what it is that we want to buy, or even we just want to do some research, we want some honest answers. That's what you'll get at Shields. Whatever your question, whatever your needs, if they have it, they'll tell you right away. They'll give you the price. They'll quote you the price. It's all there in the website. But if they don't have it, they'll be very honest with you and say, listen, and in some cases they'll even recommend some place for you to go. They're honest people, which I think these days is extremely, extremely important. Plus the fact they've got a very good finance plan there at Shields, and the prices are very reasonable. And almost anything you'd want in appliances, they've got in stock. Have them in your home within a day or two. John, what are people saying here?
Hurt people, says Michelle. I agree with that. I think a lot of it is exactly that. It's just people who are in a very, very dark place and they don't know how to deal with it. They don't know how to channel it. And for some reason that probably only a psychologist or psychologist could explain, it removes the pain from them for a while and puts it somewhere else. That's kind of how I deal with it. That's kind of what I sort of expect is happening on the other end of anything I receive. Yeah, by and large. It's Mr. Teeny Weenie, says Laurentian View Terry, with the loud muffler and triple woofer that figure this is the only way to get attention and make people notice them. Anne said something earlier, too, on Facebook. She says they're trying to compensate for other shortcomings.
That was actually, there was always, I better be careful here. We always figured that the bigger the tire, on the vehicle, the smaller the penis. I don't know if there's any truth to that, but
it's long been the rumor.
Go ahead.
I don't know. My tires are average. Okay. Eileen says, John, you're so handsome, and Lowell, a lot of people love you. There are just a lot of sick people out there, she says. Paul says people do things like that when they won't suffer any consequences, when they think they won't suffer any consequences. Joshua,
but why? I don't understand how you get enjoyment from hurting other innocent people. That to me is the key
Mhm.
question here. What is going on? John, you suggested that
It
they're
removes the
hurting
pain from
themselves.
themselves for a while. Yeah.
Actually, that's a very interesting idea. Um, one of the theories behind the funnies, the comics in newspapers, etc., is people enjoy reading other people who appear to be stupider than they are.
Yeah.
You read Dagwood, for example, and Dagwood Bumstead, and that.
Oh, I miss Dagwood.
Yeah, that apparently is the theory, that they really enjoy reading about somebody who obviously is stupider than they are. Go ahead, please.
Anne says it's definitely very attention seeking. It screams, "Look at me, I'm alive." And that may just be it. They're just not getting the attention they seek elsewhere. Kevin says the trolls are not real people, usually computer generated programs. Kevin, yes and no. Some, he says, are real people that think all the others are real too. Okay. Getting into some deep stuff there. Murray says most trolls living in their safe space in mommy's basement. To me, it's a form of almost trantuism, Trantumish acting out.
I have no
What is
idea
that
what
word,
that
Ann?
word.
What is that word? Ann, I'm going to troll you with
A
all kinds of
tantrum.
language I'm making up.
I guess she's referring to having a tantrum.
That's what I thought she was going to. I just couldn't
Yeah,
make out the word. It wasn't making any sense.
I've never heard that word.
Noise is power, says Richard. Chris says, at work, I experience people being centered out, treated differently, so I never spoke up. Okay. And I'm sorry to hear that. Joshua says, trolls are simply driven by the lack of consequence the internet provides. The internet makes people feel safe to say things one would never say to someone else's face.
Yeah, but once again, we're not getting to the crux of it here. A little bit of thought here. Okay, why? I asked this question again. Why would people get joy, entertainment from actually hurting other people? Because particularly if you become personal, this is very hurtful. Why do people get joy from hurting others? That's my question here. What is it? Is there something? Have they got a mental problem of some kind? Are they?
Yes.
Yeah, you think so?
Yes.
I'm not sure. Go ahead, please. What else are people
We have
saying?
dueling Anns going on here. We've got a lot of Anns following. Ann Blimke says, I don't know, can we be born with a lack of empathy and it plays out in all of this nastiness? And the other Ann is back to say, Lowell is very smart. Having a tantrum is what she intended to say. She says she's just invented a word there. Eric says, clean and simple. It gives them a feeling of power. And Kathy says some get a thrill out of others' pain.
Yeah, but why? You got to take it to the next step here. Why would you get a thrill? Because most people don't.
Yeah.
So is there a gene that's gone wrong inside these people's heads? What do you think motivates this?
Kind of the same question we ask about murderers, right? Or people who hurt animals or abuse,
Well, people
family
who
members.
hurt animals, really, there's no question in my mind that they have a mental problem. Anybody that would hurt, but and actually, in a way, it's the same. I mean, prepared to hurt an innocent, helpless animal, you're also prepared to hurt an innocent, helpless human
They
being as
they
well.
always say it grows from there, right? That's why they get so
Very
concerned
often.
about people who abuse animals, is because if whatever it is that attracts them to that, they
Yeah,
feed off that and it grows bigger and becomes even more serious because they take on humans. Yep.
that's right.
Let's see. Chris says some people aren't happy with their life. It makes them feel better picking on someone else, centering them out. Exactly. It's a reflective or deflective, I
So
guess.
I think that's an interesting idea. So I think what he's saying there is that if you're hurting
She, by the way.
and she,
Yep.
you can make someone else hurt even more. So you say, I'm not the guy who's hurting most. There's other people hurting more than me. That's an interesting idea. It's a puzzle. Go ahead, please, John.
Yep. I mean, listen, when I was going through the height of my depression, I sought pain. I wanted something else to hurt me for a long time. It took that pain away even for a few minutes. That was the worst part about the depression, is seeking, this is why so many people who have depression hurt themselves. I really honestly believe that. Renee
Let me
says,
ask you, John.
yeah.
You've introduced this, so
Mhm.
I'm going to ask the question.
Ask me anything.
Why did you choose to go public with this, knowing that this would bring a rain of whatever on your head?
To be honest, I didn't
Yeah.
really have a choice in the matter. I had a nervous breakdown live on the air.
Really?
And yep. And I just decided I wouldn't, from that point on, there was no real decision. It just sort of everything that I had been experiencing, every mental or every physical pain, everything I'd gone to the doctor about and couldn't get answers to was finally explained once during, a conversation on the air. And it just broke me down. And
Really?
it made so much sense. Yeah. Yeah. And I decided and
You're
you
telling
remember
me that one phone call brought this all out? Is that what you're saying?
No conversations. It was a let's talk day. And you
Okay.
would hear all the stories of people who've been through,
I see.
absolutely traumatic experiences, and everything I was hearing ticked a box. And it just made me finally realize, oh my God, I think I finally have an answer to why I am in such a miserable place in my life and I need to get help. And I said that on the air too. I said, I need to get help. And you remember Mark Mayhew. We both worked for Mark Mayhew, very
Yes.
smart guy in radio, great
Yes.
manager. And Mark said something to me that I'll never forget once upon a time. He said, John, if people make an appointment to spend time with your radio show every day, if they don't learn something new about you that they didn't know yesterday, you're not connecting. So that's why I kept the conversation and kept being honest about my own experience out into the public for, because I knew it was helping.
What was the reaction?
Mostly positive. A lot of people very excited that I was finally giving them a voice and able to articulate things that they probably hadn't been able to articulate. But
Really?
conversely, Lowell, I opened myself up to a pile of, ironically, trolls. People who mistake depression and mental health issues for craziness. Yeah, people who just,
Well, let me ask you this, John. I've sort of would you say that most of those who did this were just ignorant people, poorly educated people, no life experience? Very narrow? What would you say was the average person who would come back on you?
I don't know. And again, this is why I'm fascinated by this conversation today, because they're trolls. And what drives that? I don't know. The only conclusion I've been able to draw, and I'm sorry to people who are commenting. I appreciate your comments, and they'll all get sent to Lowell. I want you to know that. But I really honestly believe, Lowell, that it's just people who do this, they are hurt themselves and they are deflecting that pain. And for that moment, it makes them feel better. It's deep. It's a psychological sickness, and it's a sickness.
Now,
But
what
for
about
that
these
moment-
guys? What about these guys that go roaring past my place with the mufflers there? What's
makes
they
them
just
makes them feel cool. It's no
Cool.
different than you and I on our bicycles with the baseball card stuck in the spokes. It makes us feel cool and makes us laugh. It's nothing more and less than that.
Okay. I won't. You know what? I won't put that piano wire across the road.
I'd like to set up a video camera though, and maybe get some of them on tape and see if we can't troll them a little bit. Let's get back to listener comments, shall we? I've taken way too much time. And thank you, by the way, for the opportunity to express that. I think it's an important conversation that we don't have often enough. Kathy says, those who attack others with mental issues, they themselves are afraid of their own demons. Yep, Kathy, or they just don't understand it yet. They're just not at a place to understand it. They haven't got that answer yet. Eric says, you just answered Lowell's question. Why do they do it? Makes them feel better. Eileen says she's been there in the past. Mahadi, John, I started to get to know through Facebook. You're a great man and so intelligent. Well, Mahadi, thank you. I want to print that one out and put that up on my wall. Somebody thinks I'm intelligent. It's only taken 53 years. Depression is a very, very lonely place, says Anne. And yeah, again, I really think, Lowell, a lot of why they do that, it's a very lonely place and it gets them attention. It's sick, I know, but until you're in that headspace, it just can't make sense to you.
I love this one. Murray says, you wouldn't enjoy my Harley then.
Nope.
Even, you know what?
Probably not.
I'm gonna tell you something. The noise from these mufflers is a hell of a lot louder than any Harley can make. Believe me. These guys, I don't know where do they get mufflers like that? What do they do? Do they adapt them themselves? Is there some store that sells these things? How do they get these things?
I don't know. I think they're all modified, and I mean, you see news articles all the time that police have pulled over for excessive noise. I mean, so it's not allowed. It's not allowed. It's not allowed in Naples. It's not allowed in Nepean either. Here, can we just give the last comment to this texter? I like this comment at 613-413-2217. I know we're running short on time. There's a thing in this modern society that you seem smart and powerful if you can out-smartass other people.
Smartass. Yeah, there's some of that involved, no question
For sure.
about it. Thank you all very much. Very interesting.
Thank you. This is one of my favorite conversations we've ever had. Really, thank you sincerely. I really appreciate this day. Thank you.
Thank you all. We'll be back tomorrow.
The Lowell Green Show is seen and heard live around the world at 2 p.m. Eastern. Connect with us online at blasttheradio.com/Lowell Green. Can't join us live? Download the Lowell Green Podcast. Available on Apple, Spotify, Google, and more. Ask your smart speaker to play the Lowell Green Podcast. This is a production of blasttheradio.com.